Have you become comfortably numb? Hey everybody, welcome back to the Renewed Homestead. I'm Ben.
I'm Denise.
And that's drywall.
Yay.
Yes, we are recording in the house. They've got all the drywall up. They're coming tomorrow to do the taping and the mud and texturing and all that. Probably take a couple of days, and hopefully by next weekend we'll be moving some of our things in.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Please. We were actually going to record outside, but it has been raining, and I mean raining for a week straight.
Yeah, it is a muddy mess. We had to get hay, and I brought the truck. I couldn't take the truck up the regular road. I came across the back here, and I left big tire marks in the grass out back. It's
well, and we've got a lot of mud right now because of all the construction and having to dig for internet line to the shop and water line, yes,
and
to
electric
the well.
line, and
yeah, so it's a muddy mess. So hopefully we'll be able to get some clover and grass seed down and some gravel down, and
we have that all ready to go. It's just needs to dry out enough to put it down.
Yes,
so.
yeah, we've got a Ford Escape, and it's not four-wheel drive, and I had somebody joking like, well, why would you get an SUV without four-wheel drive? And I'm like, well, we didn't need it in Phoenix.
Right.
So, but we couldn't get it out.
Yeah, she's like, what SUV doesn't have a four-wheel drive?
Ours?
A Phoenix. Yeah.
Right.
A straight dry road.
Yeah, the truck was able to get out, but we were not able to. We haven't actually been able to get out with the SUV. It's been that wet.
Well, we could take a running start at it, but if we miss and we hit that mud, we're going down in the creek, just like I did with the RV when we first got here. So we're not doing that.
Fun.
So anyway, today we're going to talk a little more on the serious side about things. We're talking about, are you just surviving or are you thriving? And I'm going to count on Denise to kind of keep me in line here, because my mind runs 16 different ways all at once, and what seems logical to me is murder on her when she's trying to edit these videos, and all thanks need to go to her. She's the chief editor, and
I'm trying to get better, guys.
She's great at it, and I can't tell her or you how much I appreciate that, because these videos will be half as good as they are, and I would probably be demonetized.
Say what?
Well, we've never been monetized, so by now, because my smart comments. But anyway, so first off, what do we want to talk about here?
Well, I think it's important, to kind of talk about what the difference is between just surviving and thriving, right?
Yes.
So if you're, and I think it's really easy to get into this pattern, to get into this funk, right? Where you, as Ben says, lather, rinse, repeat, right? You're going to work, you're coming home, you're doing the same thing over and over again. And if the things that you're doing, you're passionate about, you're enjoying, that's fine. But I think for a good majority of us, we're not really enjoying our lives, right? We go to a job that most of us don't like. We spend most of our lives, giving our lives to a job that we don't enjoy, instead of actually going out doing the things that we enjoy. And we just kind of go through life comfortably numb, as Pink Floyd would say, instead of really being passionate about something, instead of really enjoying life, instead of, I guess, grabbing it and just saying, okay, I really am enjoying my time here on Earth. And so I think a lot of us, it's really easy to get into the survival mode and to not really find joy in life. And we want to just talk today about a few things that have helped us, because trust me, we've been in that corporate rat race where it's lather, rinse, repeat, right? And even with kids, it can get, lather, rinse, repeat overwhelming, because you've got, when your kids are little, you've got to take care of the kids when they're little, but then as they get older, it's football practice, it's hockey practice, it's school events, and it's plays and church events and homework and all these other things. And I think it's really easy for us to get so caught up in the minutia of life that we forget to find the enjoyment in life. I hope that made sense.
Makes perfect sense, and yeah, time's fleeting, and in those moments, you've got to remember to make memories too. You know, it's you know, and you know, when my son was in football, I went to every practice and of course every game. You know, I wouldn't miss it, but things like that, you know, it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. I'm so glad I was there for that, but it's also things that he has said. He's like, Dad, you were always there at every single practice, and I appreciate that. And it's memories you're making for yourself, but also for your family. But
well, and I don't think you understand, because some of you know, but not all of you know, that we lost our son in 2016. Sorry, I thought I was going to be able to.
It's okay. And
yeah.
Yeah, if you'd like to learn more about that, in his honor, we founded the GEM Foundation, J-E-M. You can look it up. We've done a lot of amazing work in his honor, and have saved countless lives in Arizona, and that's spreading across the country too. But that's a complete side note. But
without, and I can tell you, those memories are so critical. And for those of you that have lost a loved one, you know, a child, a grandparent, a parent, you know, brother, sister, you know, best friend, those memories are what you have to hold on to afterwards. So a lot of times I tell people, make that memory, right? You might be exhausted, you might be tired. And I understand sometimes your kids want to go to the store. I'm not talking about just taking them to the store, right. But if there's something that you guys can do together, right? You can go on vacation, but not everybody has money for vacation. So if you can just go for a drive, go to the forest, go someplace that you both will enjoy and spend the day together, I promise you, you will never regret not doing dishes in a sink. And believe me, for me saying this, because I am very clean, I'm very organized, but those dishes in the sink can wait. Those memories are what you have to hold on to. So I implore you to make those memories. That will help you find a lot of joy.
Yeah. And you're cleaning an organization. How do you feel about living in an RV for a year and a half?
Oh my gosh, I can't even. I try to thank God every day. Yeah, I literally screamed last week.
Yes, you did.
I actually literally screamed. We have a little tiny area where we can prep for food, and I had set a plate down, and the plate dropped. And I didn't have room. The plate dropped, and I looked at Ben. I said, "I'm going to scream. Just prepare. I'm going to scream."
You wouldn't believe Loki. Screamed. You wouldn't believe Loki, a German Shepherd, could crawl under the driver's seat of a vehicle, but you pretty much did.
Yeah, I literally screamed.
Yeah, but you know, like she said, sometimes it's just stupid little things. And one of the fun memories that I have, when Alec was young, when the new Call of Duty would come out, he would beg me. He's like, Dad, we've got to be there when they release it. And they would release it at midnight, so on a school night, of course. So we did that a couple of times, which, you know, looking in hindsight, I'm glad we did. That was fun. You know, and when Hope was graduating high school, where'd she want to get her pictures? San Diego. So we took a road trip, you know, went and took pictures out in San Diego, and just, fun stuff.
He even braved twilight to take his daughter there at midnight. So
I did.
Yes.
I did.
Yep. I remember, I was in school, so I did my bachelor's and my master's while I was a single mom. And I remember, because I did not want to miss, Jake played hockey and loved hockey. And he played football as well. But I remember taking, because I had to have papers due, or I had to do a test or whatever it was, but I was there at the practice. I would take my laptop. I contacted the owner of the ice rink, and I'm like, look, can I connect into your Wi-Fi? Yeah. And I did my homework. And so I would, do a little bit of homework, and then I'd make sure I was watching, do a little bit of homework, making sure I was watching. The games, I always put it away, but during practice, but it was just, it was just important to be there.
That's right.
So, but yeah, so if you can, we understand, there are times that you can't be, but if you can make memories, that's huge.
Yeah, we've kind of got a little bit sideways, but when do we not do that on our videos? But
that's true.
But that's true. Years ago I was in Amway 4 years, and that, not 4 years, but for several years. But one of the conferences we went to, one of the speakers referred to a job as, being a rut, being an open-ended grave. You're just digging yourself in, and I think the average is after somebody retires 18 months before they pass away. Yeah. You're literally giving your life to another company. So, find something more, something in your life that you're more passionate about than just earning a paycheck. But anyway, to stay on track, what have you got? What's next?
Well,
what do we need to discuss?
Well, I think the most important thing, we talked about memories, but I honestly think the most critical, the most important thing, I don't think you can thrive. Actually, I know you cannot thrive without God, without faith.
Yes.
So, and I've got a few verses in here that I want to talk about. We can do that as we go throughout the video, just with the craziness of everything that's going on. Even though I have to say, when have we not been in crazy times, right? I grew up during the Cold War. I know you grew up during the Cold War.
I was born during the height of the Vietnam War, so I'm dating myself, but yeah, it's been just crazy. The last in my lifetime, about the only peaceful time I've known without any new wars is the last 4 years, and this one that's the whole thing going on in Russia right now. I mean, this might be the granddaddy. We don't know. We're hearing some scary reports, but we keep praying that calmer heads will prevail.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, look at it. We had the Korean War.
Oh, don't even go
right?
listing them all.
Then the Vietnam War, then the Cold War, then what? Desert Storm, right? Operation Iraqi Freedom, Afghanistan, Ukraine. It's just been, it's been over and over and over again.
Needless bloodshed.
Yes.
Then we say the least.
So, but faith is absolutely critical. I don't know how I would have survived, honestly, after losing Jake without my faith. But we know the world's crazy. God never promises us an easy life. He says he wants to bless us. He wants to give us things. But at the same time, Christ was very clear, and he said, if they persecute me, they will persecute you. And we've been very fortunate in this country. If you look at what's happened to people in China and people in the Middle East, look at what happened to Christians in the Soviet Union. They were put to death. And we've been very fortunate in this country that we don't really understand what it is to sacrifice for our faith, not to the extent that they have. And I think in some ways that's hurt us, because we don't have to defend our faith very often.
Right.
So I think it's really critical to look to God, to seek God, to pray, because praying, God talks to us about praying, and yes, it is to petition him, but I think a lot of it is to change our hearts, to change who we are inside, especially, when we hate somebody, God tells us to pray for them. Why? Because that removes the anger from our hearts a lot of times, and it helps us to live a better life. If you're angry, if you're jealous, if you're envious, if you're holding on to resentment, you're not thriving. Yep. And so pray, have faith, seek God. I believe that's actually the most critical thing to actually thriving and not just surviving.
Yep. I can't add to that. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right.
So, and then I think you talk a lot about being prepared.
Do we want to talk about being prepared right now? Well, in just not surviving, thriving. We, as she said, we've talked about being prepared a lot, having stuff at the grocery store, food stores, and extra toilet paper and things like that. Imagine, some of the stuff I've seen down at the grocery store, pet food. The pet food aisle has been decimated. I worry about all the pets that are going to get surrendered because people can't afford food. But my passion for animals. But what if you went into the grocery store and the meat aisle and the pasta aisle looked like the toilet paper aisle did in 2020? Mm-hmm. The staples that you normally come home with, what if you didn't get those? What if you don't have them? It's hard. We've looked at this, and we've talked about, Zach over at American Homestead says, you follow preparedness to its logical conclusion, you end up on Homestead. Mm-hmm. Here we are. So we can't plant fast enough. We can't prepare our food forest fast enough. We can't do things as quick as we would like to do. And a lot of times we do ask God for our own patience, because it's not enough. I wake up early in the morning going, okay, I need to go out there. Oh, wait, I got to sign into work and work my hours and all that. But, what are you doing in your life that's preparing you in case something happens? Are you, like I said earlier, going to work, coming home, getting that paycheck, going to the grocery store on Saturday, coming home on Sunday, watching football, lather, rinse, repeat. Is that going to be the same next year as it is right now? What is your passion? Seriously sit down and just spend some quiet time, set the phone aside, don't turn on the TV, and just think about, what is it if, say I got $1 million dropped into my account, and I'm not talking about, I'm going to go out and buy a car, I'm going to go on vacation, things like that. What, if you had that kind of freedom, that kind of financial freedom, what would you want to do? How would you want to spend your days? Is it being on a homestead, or, would you take some classes and learn how to weld or woodworking or something like that? Where's your passion, and how can you make that, turn that into a better life for yourself? I've got over 30 years in banking right now, and I can just like they say, take a glass of, when you think you're irreplaceable, put your finger in a glass of water and pull it out and see how long that hole lasts. That's what I am to that corporation. Nothing. I'm gone. They don't care. Insert the next person to do my job. There's no passion from them towards me, and I'm not passionate about what I'm doing, but it helps me pay my bills and helping me achieve those other goals. But I've got to have those other goals in mind, because otherwise, we go buy lottery tickets, or we'd waste our money, spend it on stuff that's not important. And this time in our lives right now, especially, we've got to be very, very directed in what you're purchasing and how you're spending your money and how you're saving your money. Not only that, but where you're saving your money. We're hearing a lot of reports about bank accounts being just mysteriously closed. Do you have some cash on hand? If things go bad, the one thing that people, one of the things people don't think about is that credit card might not work. You stick it in an ATM, if everybody's rushing down to the bank and sticking their card in their ATM, that thing's going to run out of money real fast. And you don't know
if the ATM's open.
If the ATM is even open, or if your card even works. You got to have some cash on hand. Just always, I used to fold up a $20 bill and I'd stick it in behind like my driver's license or something like that, so I would forget about it, but it was there in an emergency. So. Yeah,
and I would definitely recommend having, if you can, at least a few $100s cash. And there are reports of people's bank accounts being closed. Haven't heard too much.
Zeroed out.
Yeah, haven't heard too much in America yet, but it's happening. It's happening in Canada. But the UK, actually all over the UK, people's bank accounts are being closed, and it's up to that person to prove the money they had in the account. It's theft, it's insane. But a lot of times, if you look at the fine print with the laws that were passed in the UK and in America, once that money goes into the bank, the money is the bank's. It's not technically yours. So the one advantage we have here is it's FDIC insured, but you better have a screenshot of that bank account. You better be able to prove exactly how much you had in that bank account if something happens. And not even looking at what's happening with the banking industry, we have to look at possible cyber attacks now, especially because we know Russia's huge on cyber attacks. And they talk about, there's multiple different kinds of attacks. My background's IT, so I understand a lot of what they're saying, but if they come in, there are no memory. They're basically memory wipe attacks, and hopefully.
Can you do that to my mortgage, please?
Right. Yes, that's not going to happen. Though they're going to take out everything.
It'll be the checking account, not the mortgage.
Checking account, exactly, checking and savings. And hopefully, most banks actually have an off-site backup that is off network. But I'm going to tell you guys, being in the IT industry, you would be amazed, and Ben being in the banking industry, you would be amazed at the lack of planning and foresight in a lot of these corporations. So not trying to scare you, just saying you might want to diversify and have multiple bank accounts, just in case.
Open a second account at a credit union. You can have your auto pay put in your primary account, and even if it's only $100, put it into at a credit union. But
if you're military or you have family that's military, we have USAA. I've had a USAA account for years. My kids have USAA accounts. Ben's kids have USAA accounts now, right?
Yeah,
so USAA is a great bank. So if you are military or have military affiliation, that's a really easy account that you can open that would help you diversify.
But the same thing applies. It's not a brick and mortar bank. So you still have to use that card in an ATM. Mm-hmm. So keep that extra cash on hand. And I know we're sounding like some kind of conspiracy theorists, a little wackadoodle, but you know what?
Noah was a conspiracy theorist, and then it started to rain.
That's right.
Just saying.
That's right. Thank you, Noah.
Yes. And thank you, Bobby. I think we were talking about Noah.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm talking about the banks. And
Yeah, no, boy, I just lost it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I can only hold my thoughts for so long, and then, the next one comes in, the other one goes out.
He is ADD. He is very ADD.
Maybe. So it was an important point. Oh, we do have a reminder set on our phones, and again, it sounds like conspiracy theorists, but we take a daily screenshot of our bank account totals, the balance in the account. That way, if something does happen, we can say, hey, look, day, here's the balances in here. I know it sounds paranoid, but I'd rather have it and delete it than to not have it and have to prove that I had money in the bank. No thanks.
And that's another thing, right? We're as we talked about, we're hearing all this craziness that's going on. We understand that institutions are vulnerable. They just are. I mean, we've seen how many hacks that happened last year, especially with the meat industry and other banking institutions. The meat industry got hacked. The pipeline got hacked. So we know it's possible. But that's where, I think that it's important to have faith and to have our trust in God. Because I think we were at Lowe's yesterday and we were picking up paint samples for the paint here. Because once the texture's done, we've got to put some paint up. And he was talking about some things that were happening, and he's like, the
guy mixing the paint.
Yeah, the guy mixing the paint, and he's like, well, the big mushroom cloud comes up, it's not going to matter. And I'm like, it's okay, I know where I'm going, right? And it doesn't mean that I'm like, okay, I don't have things I want to accomplish here, but I don't have that fear that, oh my gosh, if something goes crazy, there's no hope. I know where I'm going. My home, as us, those of us that are Christians, we know this is a temporary spot. We know that our home is elsewhere, but that gives me comfort. Just like with Jake, I'm going to see Jake again. I know for a fact I'm going to see Jake again.
He is in for an ass whooping.
Yeah, he is. but it's comfort. And, and so we don't want to get, we don't want to, like I said, sound like too much of a conspiracy theorist, but we know if you can prepare, and we're going to be honest, you cannot prepare for every eventuality. No. You can't. It's not possible. But you can prepare to a point where you have some food set aside, you have some cash set aside, you have water reserves, especially for those of you that are in the city, if something happens and the water gets turned off. So if you have some of those reserves on hand, then when things happen, you're not panicked. You're like, okay, we are prepared for this. And that gives you a sense of peace. And that's really critical. And one of my favorite verses is actually Matthew. It's Matthew 6:25-34. So bear with me. I think this is actually a really critical verse. So therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you of not more value than they? And which of you by being anxious can add a single hour to his life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? Therefore do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after all of these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. And this is the, I believe the ESV, the NIV, I like how it says, and it's like, don't worry about today because today has enough worries of its own. I actually kind of like that translation with that verse. But it's just a reminder, and I fail at this all the time. I start to worry or I start to get ahead of myself, and this verse always brings me back to remember, okay, wait a minute, God's got this. God's got this.
But you also talked about this in a previous video. He says, don't worry, but God also says, be prepared.
Yes.
So, it's good to have faith, but you also need to have action behind the faith.
Yes, God, yeah, and that's kind of it. And it's not in the Bible, but God saves those who save themselves. I mean, I don't believe in that 100%, but because there are people that can't. But to a point, there are a lot of messages that God gives us, right? I mean, and we talked about this in one of the other videos with the guy on the roof, right? Mm-hmm. There's a flood and the guy's on his roof and he's like, God will save me. and he sends a bus first, and they say, before the flood he sends the bus, right?
There's a flood coming, and
that's right.
Yeah, the whoever man was at the house, and truck came by and said, the flood's coming, let's go. He's like, no, God will save me. Flood waters rose, and he's got water up to his knees, and a boat comes by and says, come on, let's go. He's like, no, God will save me. Next thing you know, he's on a roof, and the helicopter comes by, let's go. He's like, no, God will save me. And he passed away in the flood at the pearly gates, and he's like, God, why didn't you save me? He's like, I sent you a truck, a boat, and a helicopter. What more can I do? So
yeah. So and there is a video, and I can put it up on one of these corners here, about, is prepping biblical or is it hoarding? And we absolutely believe that God calls us to prepare. That's one thing. We're not Mormon, but that's one thing the Mormons do really, really well, is to prepare. And it's not just for, SHTF situations, right? It's for job loss, or if somebody gets ill or somebody gets sick. So it's just to bring peace of mind.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a lot, but there's the prepared side of it, but there's, we don't prepare out of panic, and we're not preparing out of fear, right? It's I enjoy it. The gardening, I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy thinking, okay, how is this going to help my family? If the world just blows up and goes mad, if the families show up, how can I be ready to bring them into our home and take care of them? I guess it's kind of a mental game in some ways. I just like, the what if, and play that with yourself. What if next Friday's payday for most people? What if you wake up in the morning and that paycheck doesn't go in? Then what? What are you going to do? I mean, are you going to be okay if you got a few days worth of food and water and, dog food and cat food?
And that's where being prepared just can bring you some peace of mind. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, we had our preparations in Phoenix. We wound up leaving a lot of that stuff behind, not the tools and things that we had, but a lot of the food stores and things like that. We didn't have the room. We couldn't do it. It made me a bit anxious knowing that we're coming out here. One, we don't know where we're going to live, because we came out blind, and we didn't have food stores. I mean, we had some of the emergency 36-hour food kits and things like that. And we had some food, of course, but and until we started, being able to stock up again, I fell a little bit on my heels. So I'm glad we've got some of those out in the shop, and once we get our kitchen in, woo, boy,
I can cook.
We've got some guineas and some chickens that are going to go back in the freezer, actually in the freeze dryer, which we still don't have put up yet. But
yeah, he loves all animals except for the birds.
I love the birds. They're tasty, tasty birds.
And
I even learned how to make chicken nuggets. I found a recipe for making chicken nuggets.
And you can't name any of the chickens Tasty Freeze. You know that, right?
No Tasty Freeze.
No Tasty Freeze. Yes, as we said in the last video.
Tasty in the freezer.
You can't say things like that.